So welcome, everyone. We're here today for the NTACT, the Collaborative 2024 CBI State Delegate Planning Meeting. So welcome, everyone, and we're thrilled to have you join us not only today, but for this year's Capacity Building Institute. And with that, we're just going to do some real quick introductions. And Bridget, you're at the top of the list, and we'll just go down the row.
All right. Hi, everyone. I am Bridget Griffin, and I work on the NTACT. I'm based at George Washington University, and I am coming to you from snowy Nebraska this morning.
Hi, this is Jackie Hyatt. I'm at University of North Carolina, Charlotte with NTACT, and I am currently in Boise, Idaho. And it's sunny and cool. I'll give the weather report.
Thanks, Jackie and Bridget. I'm Caroline McGee. Good morning and good afternoon. I'm here from joining you from Eugene, Oregon at the University of Oregon, and also with NTACT. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And it's going to be a gorgeous day here. We've had some chilly weather, but we're seeing sunshine, which is unusual for Eugene, Oregon. So nice to see everyone today.
Great. And I'm Michael Storer, and I also work for NTACT, the Collaborative, but I'm along with Jackie at the University of North Carolina in Charlotte. And it is 56 degrees and sunny in Williamsburg, Virginia today. So spring is springing here in Virginia. We are really happy that everyone is able to join us for this year's Capacity Building Institute. And this year's theme, as you've seen in the emails we've been sending out, is embracing collective growth. Let's dig in. If you remember last year, we were building back together because it was our first in-person CBI after COVID. And really, just like I mentioned earlier, if anybody heard me chatting, I started to buy some spring plants to put in. But I think that that's really where we're at, too, in looking at the work that we're doing to support you all in your state teams and what so many of you are doing, really building on all the great practices that you have in place and looking at that goal planning for next year, what you're going to be doing for 2024-25. So again, welcome, everyone. We are thrilled to have you here. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about the capacity building cycle, the fact that this is a year-round process. We're going to go over the agenda for this year's Capacity Building Institute, and then provide you with some thoughts for preparing your team and you as a delegate, things to think about as you get ready to come to the Capacity Building Institute. And then lastly, we'll be leaving you with some takeaways and some things to think about, again, as you're prepping for our CBI. So as you all know, and we've been talking about this really for the last, since NTACT the Collaborative was NTACT the Collaborative, is that it really is an ongoing effort in your states, that it's not just a once and done, you come to the CBI in May, and then it's a lovely event, and then you go home on a conference high. It really is not a conference. It's an institute, right? So we're working together in teams, but we also want to stress that it's ongoing year-round work. And it's our connection to you all in states and the work that you're doing. So it's a year-round process. And both this Capacity Building Institute, as well as the resources, the webinars we provide, as well as the technical assistance that NTACT provides, is really to help states to increase your understanding of secondary transition resources, supports, to best support those students with disabilities as they are transitioning. And many of you are, have attended our webinars, download our resources, and many states are involved in either intensive or in targeted technical assistance with us. So when we look at the purpose of you all coming and you as delegates at the CBI, some takeaways. It's really to help increase your knowledge of effective transition practices and resources. And Caroline, in a few minutes, is going to talk about the content sessions as well as the schedule. But there's going to be many opportunities for you to learn new information, network with folks, and really enhance the skills that you already have. we encourage, and we're going to talk multiple times today about using the pre-assessment for your teams to look at where you're currently functioning as far as your goals and what you want to work on. Looking at updating your plans from last year, whether you're using the online NTACT collaborative online tool for planning or your own tool, but really looking at updating those plans. And I think one of the highlights or one of the most important pieces of the Capacity Building Institute is networking with other states and the other folks nationally that are there from the technical assistance centers and other supports. And then I think lastly, it's really looking at building your state level transition team, your capacity. We are, and Bridget's going to talk a little more about this, but this year we are using this delegate model, which is a little different. But the thought is that we know many states have very large teams that you're working back in your states with, and what you're sending, the team that's coming is a representation of that, right? To help to for them to acquire information and come back. And that's why I think so much of that pre-planning is important, as well as the work that you'll be doing at the Institute, then coming back and really sharing all that with the entire team to enhance your planning. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Caroline.
All right, thanks, Michael. So you can see there, this is what we're going to be outlining next, as Michael has shared. Content sessions, I'm going to go through some of the agenda and just what to expect. We're also going to talk a bit about facilitated interagency team planning, that process, and access to content resources throughout the CBI, as well as that state-to-state networking piece that Michael shared. So I'm going to focus a little on the agenda here and our themes this year. So you can see in alignment with what Michael outlined earlier and with our objectives as the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition, the collaborative, and as we are jointly funded between OSEP and RSA, we're really looking at this as an opportunity to build on the work that you all are doing, and particularly in these areas related to engagement and leadership with youth and families in their educational and transition services. You can see there also just that, that critical piece related to database decision-making and use to improve programs and services, certainly justice, equity, and inclusion. So attending to that with diverse populations of students and youth with disabilities. And then as the collaborative, focusing really on those critical partnerships and service delivery, so that for that ongoing retention and recovery of students. And then that last piece there just related to that provision of career and tech ed, career pathways and those experiences that students may access while they're still in school, and particularly for underrepresented populations and all students and youth with disabilities. So that's the kind of the embracing the model of the work and building on the work that you all are doing and what you have outlined in your strategic plans. And as I walk through the agenda next, just sharing that that was developed based on looking across the strategic planning that you all have been doing over the years, and particularly what we saw last year, as well as getting broad stakeholder feedback for building our agenda for this year. So for those who are arriving Monday evening, we will have registration open so you can pick up your materials and we can connect with you while you're getting on site. And then Tuesday, opening registration first thing in the morning, and then we will have serving a breakfast that morning, and going to be providing an opportunity for those state-to-state networking sessions that Michael was talking about. We have several opportunities throughout the CBI for both formal and informal networking with other states. So we're going to have some sessions just that are topically focused, and we'll share more details about those as we go along. We're really excited to offer a plenary session that includes a film screening of The Ride Ahead with Dan and Samuel Habib. Some of you may be familiar with some of their other work, including Samuel, and they have a documentary short that preceded this now full-length documentary that we're going to be having an opportunity to watch together, and then also have dialogue and discussion facilitated by our Youth Engagement Transition Initiative members. So we'll have several of our Yeti folks on site that will be working with us to hear your feedback and to provide an opportunity for you to be thinking about those themes and that content and context that will carry forward in informing your state strategic planning. We'll have 6 concurrent sessions in the afternoon, again, all topically focused within alignment of those themes that we outlined earlier. And then your first opportunity for interagency state strategic planning, facilitated by folks, collaborating partners and folks external to the NTACT. We're really excited to have a nice, robust support, again, with facilitators working with you to do your strategic planning. And then the next day, again, full schedule, we'll have registration open again. And then that'll be an opportunity following, prior to our first general session, with just an opportunity for some informal networking and visiting with TA providers as makes sense for you and your teams. And then we'll offer another general session. And this one, we're really excited again to have the engagement and leadership of our Youth Engagement Transition Initiative. And they'll be facilitating some dialogue with you all again to kind of get you poised for your work throughout the day. Concurrent sessions, offering another 6 of those. And as we get closer to the Institute, we'll be providing more details on that content so that you all can be doing some pre-planning in terms of dividing and conquering among your team members to attend those sessions and see how that content can help inform your planning. And then offering an opportunity, number 2 there, for strategic state planning with lunch on your own. We also know it's important to be able to get out if you can and be able to connect maybe informally offsite with other state colleagues as well as your team members and your facilitator to do more planning. You can do that on-site, off-site. We've got some flexibility there. And then you'll see the afternoon, for those of you who joined last year, we had what we call table talks. And this year we're kind of taking it a step further, doing these knowledge interchange sessions, the KISSes. We'll have part 1 of 2. We're going to share some more on the following day. And this really is an opportunity to continue conversation from those concurrent sessions and the work that you would have been done thus far. So that'll also be facilitated conversation and more formal state-to-state networking. And you can see there in the afternoon another opportunity for strategic planning. Again, that's in direct response to what we hear back from folks each year, how critical that head down time during CBI is to be able to get some work done. And then that evening, we're going to offer our resource walk with a cash bar and some light snacks, and then that'll be dinner on your own. And lots of exciting changes. I think Michael's going to talk a little bit about that later, what we're seeing at the hotel and the surrounding areas for restaurants, et cetera. And then another full day on Thursday. You'll have this is opportunity for breakfast on your own, maybe some more informal state-to-state networking. We're going to start with a plenary session celebrating the work that we've heard from you throughout the Institute, as well as outlining some next steps. And then we'll jump right into 6 additional concurrent sessions. So more content that can help inform your next planning session. And then those KISS sessions, again, building on content, continuing conversations, and that'll be facilitated dialogue with you all. We will adjourn at 2:30. And then we're also offering an optional interagency state strategic planning time. We know that for folks who stay on, that can be really helpful and supportive. That'll be on your own, but we'll have the spaces available for you to continue your work should you choose to do that. So wanted to make sure that we had that included, again, based on feedback from you all that some of you have availed yourselves of that opportunity in the past.
Great. Thanks, Caroline. And folks, if you do have any questions, please put them in chat. We will get to those. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Bridget.
Yeah, thanks, Michael and Caroline. I am going to talk a little bit more about the facilitated interagency team strategic planning process. And like I said yesterday when we did that, that's quite a mouthful. It's like a lot to say, but it really is the heart of the Institute, right? So I can go on to the next slide, Michael, and let's talk about what we know already. So we've got 40 plus interagency or territory teams registered or indicating their intent to attend. So we know it's going to be a really robust Institute again this year, with lots of opportunities to network and all of that sort of thing. You will have noticed a change in the communications that have come out and communications from those contacts in the States this year about the team size. It's very different to previous years where we didn't really put an indication on team size before, but based on feedback from last year's institute and concerns about accommodating all of the teams and giving them space to plan, as well as accessibility requests and accommodations that we needed to make, we did make the decision to limit those team sizes. So the greatest number of delegates you can bring on site to the institute is 8. And we've also said a minimum of 2 people. So we really want to encourage that this is an interagency team planning meeting. So we look at, VR and education as some of those primary partners in there, and recognize that there are a lot of other partners as well. You've got your PTIs and you've got your CTE and a lot of people working in the field as well. So we're not trying to limit anything, but we really are kind of honing in on that delegate piece, because their delegates are the representatives of that larger interagency team back at home. We want you to think about having those conversations before you even get to the institute with that larger interagency team, and then bringing forward their voices to the institute so that you can really hone in and plan. Pick the delegates that are the most connected, I guess, to the goals that you're beginning to develop. It's a time really to develop and update that state strategic plan that you have in place. So it may be a brand new one, it may be new goals, you may be bringing forward goals from a previous year, but that's really what this is all about. And those plans should focus on your own state identified needs and priorities. So before you arrive at the CBI, and I said much of this, I think, on the previous slide, so forgive me if I'm repeating stuff, but bring together your interagency team. Conduct that strategic planning pre-assessment if that works for your team. Many of you did that last year. The feedback that we got from the pre-assessment last year was that it really did help identify priorities for teams. We know that everything's a priority in the state. We know that it's hard to kind of say, oh, well, that's not a priority for me. But then I think once you have identified those priorities, you can really decide, okay, what's today's priority and what's the priority that I could defer a little bit? So just kind of thinking about that, because we know everything is a priority and it's hard to kind of streamline that. But just thinking about that is probably a good idea. Review your data, and we'll talk a little bit more about data in a few minutes, but also your previous goals, your progress, and any challenges that you've had with kind of meeting those objectives in the past. Are there goals that the team wants to bring forward from a previous plan for your 2024 plan? Are there new areas that your team wants to consider based on those pre-assessment results? Also, I think one thing you really want to think about too is, are there other initiatives currently happening in your state around transition? What comes to mind for that is like if there's a DIF grant in your state or something like that, thinking about those identified priorities within your state, that those are also interagency initiatives, and you really want to maybe think about aligning your priorities with those so that there's some crossover in that work. All right, Michael, thank you. I think this slide really goes back to the heart of have the conversations prior to getting to CBI with the larger interagency team. And again, debriefing that when you get back to your team. So everything that's on here is a little bit about, your facilitator will sit down with you, and probably one of the first things they'll do is set some ground rules for that communication. But making sure that all team members are engaged, feel like they're being listened to, feel like they're being heard, that their involvement there is purposeful, that there's a reason for them to be there. You want to be respectful, ask their opinions. I know that all of you are translating the very same thing to the students you work with and everything like that, probably on a daily basis, but we also have to remember that in our own teams. But I think really important is hearing the voice of your wider interagency team before you get, because you're coming as a delegate to represent that team, and also bringing whatever you did at the Institute back to the team so you debrief and you have not gone off track with anything and that they're all on the same page. Just a little more on the strategic planning pre-assessment. And you may want to take a look at this if you have not done it previously, because I think it could be helpful. It's designed for you to do before the CBI, as I said already. Inform your priorities for this year, which may also be a carried over priority. And it also can help the facilitator to guide your team in team planning. That facilitator will share the results of your pre-assessment with them so that they can kind of think, oh, this is what this team's priority is, and it will help them to help you. Okay, I said earlier that we were going to talk about data just a little bit, and what data that you should consider gathering or bringing with you to the Institute. So lots and lots of data out there that you can think about, but indicator and program performance data, thinking also about how is that disaggregated so that you can really address maybe sometimes those underrepresented populations that you have. I think Caroline mentioned that earlier as well, that that's a priority for our center as well. So thinking about all of that. So looking at disaggregated data, transition performance information, pre-ETS referral and participation data. And I would even go beyond that to say even more than just pre-ETS data, looking at that engagement of students in VR services and really in that continuum of VR services. How many students are we moving into that to really bridge that gap from high school to beyond? Looking also at student achievement data and program evaluation results, workshops that you've done in your state, how that in-state training is going, your student employment data from your work-based programs. Like, we know there's lots and lots of data out there. So these are just ideas for you to consider. We really did kind of distill this down, and I'm not going to read this slide, except to say, we know that probably the primary people who will be there are your state education people and your state VR people. So you want them to really think about, okay, what data do they need to bring to the table for this? Because for all team members, it's important to see this data. All right. And then think about data that you might not have considered, like the number of students with disabilities who are accessing CTE in your state, and the outcome data for those students. I think another one that's always really important, and I always, when I was in a state, always kind of judged things by how many calls I got from PTI, just about how things were going in the state, because we all know nobody calls PTI when things are going really well. They call PTI when they're having a problem. And when I got a call from PTI, I was always like, something's going wrong somewhere. I need to address that. But it does give you a pulse on what's going on in the state, and particularly if there are some repeated concerns, that's always something to be aware of. You want to also be really cognizant of how many students you have that have a 504 plan, or even those students who are eligible for the purposes of Section 504. So just thinking about that, we don't always look at that. I think our priority is those students who are covered with IDEA, but we certainly don't want to forget those students who have 504 accommodations as well. And then the number of students with disabilities who are justice involved, or in the foster care system, or involved with the mental health systems, DD, that sort of thing. So just kind of having an idea of those numbers as well is also helpful.
Great. Thank you, Bridget. And
yeah,
again,
thanks,
if you have
Michael.
any questions, please put them in chat. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jackie.
Thanks, Michael. I'm going to just spend a bit of time talking more about the role of the facilitator. I believe the majority of our teams do use a facilitator, and it's fine if you don't. Everybody makes that decision on their related to how their team functions and what they desire. But the facilitator, we pull facilitators from a lot of our national TA centers that work with us. And I just last year, we had such an awesome group of facilitators, and many of them will be coming back this year. So you can look forward to, I think, having a great facilitator. But their role is really to help you organize and support your team discussions. So they'll talk with you about setting an agenda for each one of your planning sessions. That really helps move you along, and really to support that conversation through maintaining that neutrality. I've been a team member before on a state team, and I know that it was difficult sometimes if I was expected to facilitate my team or to lead that team. The facilitator is really meant to allow all team members to have a voice and have that chance to really participate and not have to worry about what's coming next or to manage that discussion. And then guiding that goal setting. So really the what you've heard already about the planning process and how important that is, we really want you to leave with some solid goals that will really help lead you forward this next year and continue your work. So that facilitator will really help move that along. And we provide training to the facilitators, both virtually ahead of time and then on site. So your facilitators have a set of tools, but again, you've got some pretty good experienced facilitators that will be coming into your teams. So with that said, what we're going to be doing is there's a group of us that are supporting that those facilitators and matching them. I always like to think of it as like this dating group that we're making good matches for. So anyway, but we're going to meet a little bit later this month. And when we have all the teams, I believe everybody's identified. We've got quite a few now, and we'll do that match. And what we do in that is we listen to what we've heard from TA providers, what your priorities are, and we look at the facilitators and some of their backgrounds and their skills, and we'll try and do the best matches we can. And you'll be hearing that about who your facilitator is by April 1st. And then once you hear who your facilitator is, if you have a NTACT C TA provider, if you've been working with NTACT C, the TA providers will kind of help connect the facilitator and the teams, or have some, help with some of those connections. But I know last year, when we started talking with our teams, you all were so anxious and really wanted to engage with facilitators, and sometimes you reached out or sometimes the facilitator did. So we'll just make sure that that process is happening, because it's really nice if you can connect ahead of the CBI with who that facilitator is. That just helps them and your team move forward faster too. And then again this year, the NTACT C personnel will be available for consultation during your team planning times, your TA providers. But we're not facilitating teams this year again. We found last year that was really helpful, so we could move around and support all the teams that we work with, all the states we work with. Shifting gear just a bit, you've heard about the pre-assessment and a little bit about the strategic planning tool. I'm going to just share a little bit more information about that. The last 2 years, and last year was our first year that we brought forth the new revised planning tool content. We took the content that was already in the tool, and we really looked at it in how do teams collaborate? What are the benchmarks and the questions? What does the pre-assessment need to look like? What are those guiding questions that need to be included that really focus on building that collaboration and building a tool that really supports that collaboration across agencies? And so with that said, if you haven't looked at the tool in the last couple of years, I really encourage you to go in and look at the contents and see how it can help support that planning process. The taxonomy for transition programming 2.0 is what was used to really support and the evidence-based practices and the predictors, and really pull in all of that to the content of that planning tool. It's organized around 5 key areas: interagency collaboration, family engagement, student and youth focused planning, student and youth development, and program structures. So as your team looks at that pre-assessment, the pre-assessment is organized around that too. That strategic planning process really does go from assessment to goal setting. And then there's also a monitoring component in the planning tool so that you can enter information on an ongoing basis across the year to really help bring your team along and inform the team as you're going. So that pre-assessment I mentioned, and Bridget was great at explaining it too and incorporating it into the how it works and informs you, but that is available to you. And that I saw that Michael put in the pre-assessment. We have 3 different ways you can access that pre-assessment: a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet that includes a calculation feature. So if you're having multiple team members respond to those and then you're collecting those, that helps to pull that together and then gives you some priority areas based on their responses. So it's just another way to use that pre-assessment. And then it's also embedded, and you'll see a tab when you go into the planning tool. There's a tab that is pre-assessment, and that is embedded into the planning tool. So all your responses are in there. And if you're using the planning tool, you'll need to enter that pre-assessment information in order to move into the assessment and planning portion of the tool as well. So with the strategic planning tool, we're going to do this a little differently this year. We've hosted times in the past, but what we decided this year would be helpful is to do a pre-recorded session about the planning tool and how to access and use it. So we'll have that available by April 5th for you to view and to walk through the tool to learn more. And if you are deciding to use that. And we're going to host office hours, so you can just pop in, ask your questions, learn a little bit more about it. And those office hours will be held April 19th from 11 to 1, and then again on April 25th from 6 to 7. So that'll just be time. You don't have to come and stay the whole time. You can send us your questions ahead of time if you want to, but that'll be a time for us to have a little more conversation. I'm going to give you a little overview because I know that some of you have been in the tool and some of you haven't. This year, the tool has the ability to have 2 people that are can edit the tool, and that's to help manage the content. And this year, your designee will be that person that can go in there. Typically, it'll have, we have the label team lead. And so when you go in to look at that, it would say team lead beside the role that you play. But the designee will be the person that has that initial. If you have had access in the past, you'll be able to access it ongoing and go in and edit your team as makes sense. So the designee, so how you're going to access the tool, there's 2 pictures on here. First, you go in and you'll select the side of the tool that says transition. And then once you get in there, there's a place to log in. And when you, if you've never been in the tool before, you'll go in and it says password. Go ahead and enter your email address, and that will allow you, it'll send you a notice to set your password. So that's pretty easy to follow through and pretty immediate. If you have forgotten your password, just click the forgot password, and again, it'll shoot you an email right away and you can reset it. It's pretty simple and straightforward. So if you have any issues or questions that come up as you're trying to get in or once you get in, please use that the link at the bottom for FCSU. That's their support link, and we have folks there that will get right back to you to be able to help you or to answer your questions as well. But I wanted just to talk just a second about all of your team members have access to view the planning tool. So if you're a team member, you can go in, once your designee has entered your information along with your email, you can go in and you'll be able to view all of the information that's in the tool, as well as download any of the PDF documents that are available on the dashboard. And those PDF documents include every aspect of the planning tool from assessment to the full plan. So that's one way that you as a team member, if you're not a designee with edit ability, you can still get in there and really utilize that information that's in the tool. The designee, and I mentioned that you'll be the one that will go in, put in your team members for this year. You'll go in and just edit those. But you can also include team members that are not attending the CBI. So if you have team members that you want to be able to be in the tool and look at the tool information, you can enter them along with their email address and they'll have that access. Okay, next slide.
And Jackie, I'm going to go back. Someone did
Okay.
just want to look at the times again and the
Okay.
for the office hours. So I'm just going to pull that back up. And
Super.
if folks, because we have some new teams coming that haven't used the tool, so a question just came in
Okay.
about that. So I don't know if you want to just mention how that.
If you, every state, and I probably didn't emphasize this, every state is able to use the tool. So each state has a site within the tool, and you'll access that just by going in. We will have populated already the information for your designee. And so the designee can be the first person to go in and make sure the team members are listed in there. And that's a pretty easy process. Just go in, the first thing, go to your dashboard. The first thing you'll see is your team, and you can go in and edit that and get everybody in there. And we'll have those office hours. So come in, come talk with us. We'll be happy to even share with you some of the benefits of the tool and how you can use it for your planning process. But I encourage you to go in and look at that, look through the pre-assessment and through those other tabs as well.
And we did put, and I know it's been mentioned several times, but in chat are examples of the pre-assessment that you can use. And a question just come in, Jackie, is the tool available now?
Yes, the tool is available now by going to transitionprogramtool.org. And if you're a state that's used it in the past, I believe by the end of March, what we'll do every year, we put in a new tool or the new year tool for you that to do this year's CBI planning. And we're gonna, that will be available for 2024, the end of March. So right now, if you go in, you'll see this year's plan and you can put in, I know some of you go in and put in progress reports. And so you can still go in there and do that. And even after it's shifted over to 2024, you're able to go in there as well. And if you get in there and you have any questions, don't hesitate to go ahead and send an email to us about that as well too.
And Jackie, a question just came in about someone indicated they're unable to log in or to reset their password, and should they just send a email to?
Yeah, I see Elizabeth. Yeah, you should be able to, but the quickest way to do that is to send Claudia at FCSU an email about that and what your issue is, and she'll get right with you. They're really responsive. She'll get right with you, and we don't need to be a go-between on those kinds of things if you want to just go ahead and email FCSU about that.
Great. And thank you. Thanks for putting questions in the chat. And
yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that too.
And
good indication we need those office hours, right?
Yes, excellent. All right, and we're just going to go on, Jackie. I'm going to go ahead and click the next slide.
Okay, I'm just going to share a little bit more about those the content resources that you have available during CBI. So we know that as you go to sessions and you interact with each other, questions come up, or you find somebody that's got that, you think has that piece of information you need for your planning time and to move a goal forward. So we have what we call content resources, and your facilitator will help you connect with them. What we do, you can use them during your second, third, and fourth planning meetings. And we'll, the facilitator will give us a request, and we'll work to partner and address that request so that we get somebody into your team to talk about the topic that you're interested in. So you can put down who you think you might want, and then we'll try and match you and maybe have a little more conversation with you, because maybe there's somebody else that might be able to really hone in on the issue you're looking for too. And we'll give you, your facilitator will have all of the information about how to make those connections. And you can talk to any one of us too if you're not getting the information you need. So we're excited about that. We always have really great content resources for you to access to.
Great, great. Thank you,
Thank-
Jackie, for all that information. And we did have a question that came in. Folks were asking for Claudia's email, so I'm going to move on. But if you have that handy,
Yeah, I'll
please
just
do that.
I'll plop that in.
Great. Thank you so much for doing that. And we're going to next move on and talk about networking. And as I said, this is really one of those key features of the Capacity Building Institute, is making those connections with folks from other states and the national centers and TA resources that we have. So there's a number of different opportunities that we are going to have to kind of embody this year's theme for the Capacity Building Institute of embracing collective growth. And we are, again, this year requesting states to bring, we call it swag, but it's those items from your state that you would like to share with other folks. So sometimes folks bring gift bags, some folks just bring, a couple items, but it's a representative of your state. And we will raffle those off throughout the CBI, but I think it's a nice way to engage, share some of the things your state's known for. I know the Wisconsin folks have shared cheese, the Pennsylvania folks have shared Hershey chocolates, and Georgia peaches, but all those wonderful things. So we'll encourage you, and more information will be coming out about how exactly to do that, and we'll be helping you follow through. As Caroline was mentioning, as she was going through the agenda, we do have a number of other networking types of sessions. So on Tuesday, to kick off the CBI, we're having what we're calling state-to-state speed networking sessions. And there will be 8 of these topical sessions. They'll be really short, like half-hour sessions, and you'll have the opportunity to go to 3 of those. And again, we'll have more information provided to you. We are going to get this information out to you before you arrive at the CBI, so you can talk to your delegates that will be on site and discuss, what's the best way to utilize everybody's time while they're at the Capacity Building Institute. And Caroline also mentioned our knowledge interchange sessions, or KISS sessions. These are an additional way to network and engage around topics. They will be 1-hour sessions, and there is a slot for those on Wednesday as well as on Thursday. Also are having on Wednesday, at the end of the day, a resource walk to find out about resources from national centers and TA providers. And during that time, there'll also be a cash bar and some very light refreshment. Last year, a number of folks took advantage of our selfie booth. So bring those phones, make sure they're charged, get pictures of your team and other folks that you meet while you are at the Capacity Building Institute. And really reconnecting, with friends, with colleagues. We used to joke when I was still working in Pennsylvania, it was transition camp, because that's what it seemed like. We were coming back every year, and it was great to see all the campers back in Charlotte. And I think really just meeting all of the staff at NTACT, the collaborative, and all our TA partners, it's really a great way to network and engage. So would like you, now to just take a minute, and Allison's going to go ahead and put this into chat. We have a Padlet. And what we'd like you to do, and many of you that are on today's call have been at the Capacity Building Institute before, but we'd like to share some ideas with folks on one thing you should think about as a delegate you want to pack, one thing you want to keep in mind, and one thing to possibly do in Charlotte. And what I'm going to do, let me stop sharing. I'm going to share the Padlet with folks so folks can see what folks are sharing. So just give me 1 second to do that. So we started this yesterday. So there are a lot of things on here, and let's see. I'm not able, oh, there we go. So with one things to pack, so go ahead and please add, but you can see some things that folks have here. Sneakers to walk around the area. Room in the suitcase bag to take home, resources and swag, by all means, yes. And they did, for folks that were here last year at the CBI, I know there's all that construction going on, and the lake that's outside of the hotel, the walking trail really wasn't accessible all the way around. I was there about a month ago, and it is. The path is open throughout. You can get down there. They actually cleaned up the lake a bit too, which is really cool, and the geese and the ducks were all happy. It was really exciting to see that. And on the other side of the lake, there actually are a few new restaurants, and I'm not sure if folks took advantage last year, but there is a light rail that's only about probably about a 15-minute walk from the hotel, and that takes you into Charlotte, and you can explore downtown Charlotte as well as the restaurants that are there. So some other things that folks are saying to pack: a mini projector is a good idea. Some teams like to use those and project things up. So that is something. Taste of home snacks to share, and I know that also has been something that folks have done. Some things to keep in mind while you're planning. Let me just pull that up a bit. And that's a good one. Pace yourself during the state team planning time, and know that you do have multiple sessions, right? That's important. Share and hear what other folks are doing. And really engage in the conference, I think, is really helpful. And the idea, and I know Jackie mentioned the content experts, but it really is something that take advantage of these folks. You have like the national leaders in transition that are there. So I think that's really important. And then looking at some of the things that there are to do in Charlotte. And you can Google this before you come, but here's some of the recommendations that folks had mentioned. I have no idea what a comedy bike tour is, but I have to Google that because I think I want to go on the comedy bike tour. I can't even imagine what that could possibly be. The paddle boats are still there outside the lake. And I know folks did karaoke last year, which was really cool. And again, taking that light rail down. So just some things to think about. And if feel free to add. If you have problems with going into this Padlet with that link, you can just put some things in chat too that you'd like to share. And I see folks are adding some other things. And that's really good too. Whoever added that comment, you don't have to accomplish everything at the CBI, but plan on keeping the momentum going. And I think that's really important. And we mentioned that, I think there's the pre-work that you're doing with your teams and meeting and doing the pre-assessment, but then it's coming back, right? And continuing that and really looking at the goals you decided to work on, how we can best do this. You may have decided, hey, we need to call in other folks on our planning team or in our state to connect with. So those are really all great suggestions. And truly get outside. I mean, it's a beautiful time to be in Charlotte. And I would recommend, if folks haven't gone into downtown Charlotte to do that. I know for the first probably 5 or 6 years, again, when I was in Pennsylvania, we just stayed on that compound. We didn't even know there was a Charlotte. We went to the airport, we went to the hotel, and we just hung around the lakes, fed the geese, and went to restaurants. So downtown Charlotte's a really cool city. There's some really nice things there, so would highly recommend doing that. So you all can continue to populate this. And you'll have this PowerPoint that came up as a discussion question in the chat. We will be sharing within the next week a recording of today's presentation, as well as this PowerPoint. So if you want to go in and share with folks, hey, here's some things to think about packing and keeping in mind and to do in Charlotte, please do that. Alrighty, so I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. Just give me a minute to do that. Hopefully it'll take me back. Just give me a second. And it is. So, alrighty. So, as we're wrapping up, wanted to share with you some links. If you haven't registered as a delegate yet, we're requesting that you do that by next week. And I know that might have been a little confusing to folks because the designees went ahead and registered your team. But we're also asking, and that was in the follow-up email that we sent out, we're asking that each of the delegates also register. And the reason we're asking for that is we want to know if you have any special accommodations, if you have any food allergies, if you, how you want your name on your name tag, if you want to list pronouns on your name tag. So that information is included when you register. So we are kind of keeping track of that. And we will follow up with you. If you decide not to enter, we will track you down. We'll send out another email just to let you know about that. That link that's there, and Allison has been putting these into the chat, is for our website, and there is information regarding the agenda. Additional information will be posted there. And then lastly, if you haven't done so already, please make sure you book your room at the Hilton University Place by April 5th. We know the hotel is filling up. We do have another hotel that is very close by that's kind of managed by the same property. There's a Holiday Inn. We'll have that information posted for you. But please make sure you're looking at that and getting your room reservations in. So some takeaways and some things to think about. Meeting back with your team. Have you looked at your plan from last year and where you are with your goals? And do you want to continue those goals, or do you want to look at new ones? Looking at the pre-assessment, looking at other activities that are going on in your state, whether you're working on grants, there's other projects going on, but reviewing all that information. As you're coming and you're thinking about goals for 2024-25, what types of data or information would you like to bring to help better flesh out what those goals could be that you're working on? Really sharing with those up to 8 delegates that are coming from your team, looking at the agenda and sharing this information with those folks that are coming. But I think, as we've been mentioning too, you know, the delegates are coming are representatives of your state and your state team. So really sharing that planning with the entire team, and having that discussion, so then when you come back with your plan, and someone mentioned that on the Padlet, you keep the momentum going, you share the information that you had, and really continue that planning. And lastly, really just sharing all this information so that everybody that's coming is aware and is able to hit the Institute running. As I mentioned, we are going to be following up with additional correspondences with you up until the Capacity Building Institute. We're planning on putting together another short little video, as well as information regarding the content sessions, those speed networking sessions, and the KISS sessions. So with that, want to thank you all for joining us. Please, if you have any other questions, please go ahead and enter those in the chat right now. Also, if you do have questions that come up, you can feel free to email us at ntact-collab@charlotte.edu. And I know that I have been and Caroline have been in direct correspondence with some of you, so you can feel free to continue to correspond with us directly. So not seeing any other questions, want to thank Caroline and Bridget and Jackie for presenting along with myself, and we look forward to seeing you in May at the CBI. So thank you all so much.
Wait, one more thing, Michael. I just want to clarify. I posted a updated link in the chat. So if you could please just use the link that says, please use this link to register as a state delegate. That's the correct registration link. So just wanted to draw folks' attention to that, please, for registering if you haven't yet already registered. And thank you, Michael and Allison and Jackie and Bridget and all of you for being here. Thanks.
Righty. Thank you all.